Good evening, everyone. We are here tonight and we are getting ready to talk about all the things education news that you need to know. I'm your host, Francesca Warren, and we are here tonight and we are doing a special episode because we have been following the case of Dr. Ebony Parker. And so we are really going to do some in depth analysis about what happened with the verdict on this past Friday and just get your thoughts. Guys, in the comments, so we can go ahead and make sure that you can see everything. So just put that there. We appreciate you. As we go through, several channels. We see somebody here from Minnesota. Hey, from Arkansas. Good to see you here also. Let's We are ready to go. Let me know in the comments. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are back. We are here and we are excited to have you here. For a second, while we get started, I want you to tell us where you are watching us from. put where you're from in the comments, and we are going to start. And as you can guess, we are doing a special episode where we are talking about the state of Virginia versus Dr. Ebony Parker. Last Friday, there was a surprise verdict. And so we're going to get all into the details of the trial, which lasted 3 days. So go ahead, tell us where you're from in the comments. All right. So, guys, every day we talk a little bit about education news that you need to know. And last week, our podcast is focused on making sure that we bring the stories that teachers want to hear, policymakers, and anyone who cares about what's happening to our schools. Our special edition is really talking about this former assistant principal right here, Dr. Ebony Parker. And this is a case that it has been all over the news since 2023, and it really started at Rich Neck Elementary School in Newport News, Virginia. It is the criminal trial of former assistant principal Ebony Parker. Now, here's what we're covering today. The backstory on what happened on January 6, 2023. That's right, it has been 2 years. And so we are going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about the story of the teacher, Abby Zwirner. Don't forget, Abby, she was a first grade teacher who was shot by her 6-year-old student, a first grader. And this is where Ebony comes in, because Ebony was the assistant principal at Rich Neck Elementary School. And so this is really going to be about what happened when that shooting occurred. Okay. And then we're going to walk through the criminal trial day by day, and then we're going to talk about the verdict. Okay. This is a factual episode, so I know there are strong feelings about this. Everybody has an opinion, and I love everybody has an opinion, but we have gotten our reporting from several sources. And all day last week, guess what I did? That's right, I went through and I listened to I watched the trial live, because I wanted to know what was happening and what were people getting into. So I wanted to tell you guys this because I think that it is important. And I also think that this case has already have, but is even more going to have a impact on some of the laws that we are going to see, I believe, in states, but also it's going to have an impact on just what has been happening in schools and students who are increasingly getting violent and how schools handle them. Okay, so we got that all out the way. I see people here from Virginia. Hey, I see people here from California. I see people here from Georgia. What's up? We're all here. Now, let's go back. So this story starts January 6, 2023. You have a new teacher. She's not, well, a young teacher. She's a first grade teacher. She's 25 years old, and her name is Abby Zwirner. This is Abby. This is from Abby's civil case that has happened, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But she was doing what most teachers do, first grade teachers. She was working in a small group with students at a reading table. One of those students was a 6-year-old boy. Now, for this podcast, we're going to refer to him as JT. Okay. This is what the court documents refer to him as. His name is never used in this. And he has been in her class since the start of the year. At approximately 2 p.m. that day, a 6-year-old, a baby, pulls a 9mm Taurus semi-automatic pistol from his pocket, pointed it directly at Mrs. Zwirner. She saw it. Instinctively, she raised her hand towards her chest. The gun fired once, and the bullet tore through her left hand. It ruptured bones, and then it entered her chest, narrowly missing her heart. Now, the bullet is still there as of today. Her students, who were first graders, of course, they are terrified, they're panicked, they're screaming, and in shock. Now, Abby has been shot. She does what I think is just, I can't think about just what she was thinking. She got the students out of the classroom and she walked herself to the front office before collapsing. Now, she later told NBC Savannah Guthrie, I will never forget the look on his face he gave me when he pointed a gun directly at me. It changed me. It changed my life. She spent 2 weeks in the hospital. She had six required surgeries. She still does not have full use of her left hand. And since then, she has left teaching. Now, if you were like me and you did not watch the civil case, I want to know, where did the kid get the gun? Well, JT's mother had bought the gun legally. His mother's name is Deja Taylor, and Deja Taylor had purchased the 9mm handgun legally in 2022. Now, what you need to know about this is that there was a domestic incident between Deja and the father of her child. They get into it. She fires the gun at him. The police don't know about it. She never gets charged, but that is what happens. Okay. On the morning of the shooting, she thought that the gun was in her. This is what she says. She thought the gun was on top of her bedroom dresser, secured with the trigger lock. I don't know why it wasn't locked up. You have a 6-year-old child, lock the gun up. But that's neither here or there. Now, according to JT's own testimony to the authorities when this happened, he climbed on a dresser, reached on top of the dresser, got into the purse, took the gun, and concealed it first in his backpack and then in his pocket when he arrived at school. Investigators later found there was no trigger lock that was ever mentioned. This is important because on the day of the incident, kids start to tell adults JT has a gun. If my teacher gut is telling me what I know to be true, the kids were probably scared of JT. And so they tell the teachers, they tell people, but JT, they look in his backpack, it's not there, and they don't search him. And that is where a big part of this is coming from. Now, according to Abby Zwerner, her civil case and her lawsuit, which she won for $10 million plus interest, JT had a documented history of behavioral incidents, including he strangled and choked his kindergarten teacher. Now, I'm going to leave that here for you because I want you to understand he choked his kindergarten teacher. Okay. And according to staff, they concerns were brought to the school administration and they were repeatedly dismissed. Now, people have asked me, well, what happened with where was the principal in this? Well, the principal was there, but the principal, according to all accounts that I can find, and even in the trial, she did not know what was happening. Okay. Now, let's go into Abby Zwerner. Now we have Abby right here, and of course we don't have a picture of JT up because he is now probably an 8-year-old child. And I will add a picture of his mother, Deja, in a second. Now Abby Zwerner was 25 years old on the day she was shot, and she was a young teacher. She was well liked by her colleagues, and in her civil trial in 2025, when she recalled this day, she said, "I thought I was dying." And I thought she says verbatim, I thought I had died. I thought I was on my way to heaven or in heaven, but then it all went black. Now, she goes by every account. When you I watched the trials, read everything. She is, of course, is the victim. But there's also Dr. Ebony Parker, who, if we look right here, she, by all accounts, when I'm looking at, she's not the victim, but I have questions about how she handled the discipline. And I want to know what would cause her, for a child that was so violent, for her to dismiss all of the warning signs she saw about him. Now, after the shooting, she resigned from her position. And the trial last week, for the first time, people got to see Dr. Parker's debriefing with HR about the incident. Okay. Prosecutors and civil attorneys argue that she was the one person in the building who both had the authority and the knowledge to stop what was coming. But the defense, her attorneys right here, argue that she was a scapegoat in a situation involving many adults, many failures, and no clear legal line she crossed. Again, I go back to the principal. According to all testimony, the principal did not know. It was state testing that day. And when the shooting happened, the principal locked herself in her office and called the police. Now, let's talk about Deja Taylor. Now, guys, Deja Taylor is it's very, as I'm thinking about reading this story and I'm looking at this, one of the things that I continually think about with this case is there were several victims in this, and I, yes, the student shot a teacher. Absolutely, he's not a victim. But due to this child's behavior, it makes me wonder what was happening in this household. So this is Deja Taylor. Deja Taylor was 26 at the time of the shooting. In the weeks after January 6th, investigators placed together a troubling picture. Now, the gun she purchased, it was a legal purchase, had been used in a separate incident. We already talked about that. There was some domestic violence happening and domestic dispute, and she fired it. Although there was no one injured, and the police were never called for that. When she purchased the gun in 2022, she filled out a background check form, and this is what got her arrested. So this is why, because Deja ended up doing 4 years, and I'm gonna tell you why. She falsely stated she did not use marijuana. Investigators later found nearly an ounce of marijuana in her bedroom. Those two facts: she made a false statement on a federal firearms form, and being an illegal drug user in possession of a firearm became her federal charges. In June 2023, Taylor pleads guilty to those two federal counts. In August 2023, she pleads guilty in Virginia State Court to felony child neglect as part of the plea deal. In November 2023, she's sentenced to 21 months in federal prison. In December 2023, a state judge goes beyond the joint recommendation of just 6 months and sentenced her to an additional 2 years for child neglect. Combined, she faced nearly 4 years behind bars. They brought out that Deja has a mental health diagnosis, schizophrenia, miscarriages, postpartum depression, and she, as of today, has completed her sentence. The boy was never charged. 6 years old. You really can't charge a 6-year-old because of the severity of his emotional and behavioral issues, which I understand, but I have real concerns about this child being out in public. And I hope that while his mother was away, he was getting real therapy and some real interventions. Now, we already know there was a civil case, and this is the picture from the civil case. 3 months after the shooting, Abby Zwerner files a lawsuit. She filed for over $40 million, and her attorneys alleged that the Newport News School District and their administrators had failed to protect her despite repeated warnings from staff about JT and that he had a firearm that day. Now, let me say this because I think this is very important. The civil case wound its way through courts for more than 2 years, and the civil trial began in October 27th, 2025. Zwerner took the stand. It was very emotional. She talked about the physical pain, the surgeries, the trauma. And she talked about how she heard from her students on the day of the shooting that her one of her students was possibly had a firearm. And what they on in the defense, as it would in the criminal trial, tried to really spread responsibility to everybody in the building. It wasn't just Dr. Parker. There was a systematic failure. Now, on November 6, 2025, the after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury comes back and they say that Ebony Parker acted with gross negligence, and Abby Zwerner was rewarded $10 million in damages plus interest beginning June 1st, 2024. Now, I will say this, that they have not collected on any money, and Ebony and her attorneys have said they will appeal this verdict. Okay. Now that takes us to the next part, which is going to be the trial. Now, I will say this trial was on Court TV. I streamed it live. I wanted to watch all of it. And I'm going to tell you this was a very short trial. It was about 3 days. But one of the things that struck me about this trial that was different than the civil trial was that we got to hear from the parents of the kids who were in school with when the shooting happened. They were in Miss Werner's class. We got to hear from the counselor. We got to hear from the reading coach, people who were in the school who, and some of them had relationships with JT. They were mentoring him, they were counseling him, and they all said that there were definite behavior issues. And one of the most interesting things that I found was that his mother would come to the school on a daily basis. She would come to the school on a daily basis. And I suspect she was coming to the school every day because he was such a behavior problem and she did not want them to suspend him. So this is just my thoughts. Don't know if this is to be true, but she was coming to the school every day. Now, why is that important? Well, let's go back to the criminal trial that started last Monday. So day one, Ebony Parker, she was charged with 8 counts of felony child abuse. Now, for each of these counts, one count for each bullet that remained unfired in the gun when the officer recovered it. The charges allege that Parker committed a willful act of omission in the care of such students in a manner so gross, wanton, and culpable as to show a reckless disregard for human rights, human life. And a caveat, Parker was the first school administrator in the United States to face a criminal trial in circumstances like these. This was precedent setting. And the jury got seated on Monday, and what they heard, the central question to this case was, could an administrator's failure to act on warnings about a child with a gun constitute criminal child neglect? Day two, there were opening statements, and they drew sharp lines. The special prosecutor, Josh Jenkins, who was brought in from Hampton, Virginia, this is what he told, and I wrote this down for the jurors. He said, this case is about the 19 children whose lives were endangered in that moment, but that moment before as well. He argued that there was one person in the building that day who had both the authority and the knowledge of what was happening, and that person was Dr. Parker. He talked about missed opportunities. Multiple school employees had come to Parker and concerns that JT had a gun in his backpack. The reading specialist searched the boy's backpack, did not find the gun, but when they didn't see a gun in his backpack, Dr. Parker says, allegedly, well, this is in court documents. She says, we'll wait. His mom is going to be coming up here. We'll let his mom search him. And the defense flipped the script. Now, Parker's attorneys argue that Parker was being held to a standard no one else in the building was held to, and that Werner herself, as the classroom teacher, had the opportunity to act. Now, I give a big red flag for this, because to ask a teacher for them to disarm a child with a gun is ridiculous, and especially a new teacher and in a gun. Oh my God. Now, the first witness who came up that day was Abby Werner. And before I go through, I want you to look at the judge right here. So I feel like this judge was very about the business of the court. She was extremely fair. She was really making sure that she dotted her I's, crossed her T's. And her name is Judge Rebecca Robinson. This is her right here. She has on purple lipstick right here. But she was really, really good. Now, Abby Werner, she was still very emotional. She described JT's behavior the day before. Many people don't know this, but JT had slammed her phone on the ground the previous day. So that's why I go back to, he did this. Where was the discipline? Yes, you don't want to suspend a 6-year-old, but cell phones are thousands upon thousands of dollars. So him slamming it on the ground, whether it's ISS, whether it's him staying home, all of this could have been avoided. She also talked about that he was in a violent, and this is, she says in quotations, he was in a violent mood the day of the shooting, and she had gone to Parker's office that morning and expressed her concerns. Now, under cross examination, she acknowledged that she had not removed JT from the class before the shooting, even after hearing about concerns about a gun. Now, if I'm a first grade teacher, I don't even think a kid has access to a gun, let alone bringing it to class. But I'm of the thought that when my children go to school, I, as a parent, I go into their backpack every day and I look and see what they have. No, um, and to keep in mind, the prosecution called 16 witnesses. There were other teachers from the school, there were parents of students from the school, the reading specialist. It was crazy. Going into day 3, we get to see the video of Ebony Parker talking about what happened at the trial. Now, I'm not trial, I'm sorry. At the After the incident. Now, this was the first time that um, we had seen this. So this had not been previously shown. And I'm actually going to show it here because I think it's important for us to use it. Let me see if I can share it. Um, hmm, let's see. Let's see. Okay, I don't think we can share the video, but basically, it's not showing right now. Basically, there is a video of Ebony where she is talking to HR. It is over Zoom, and she is crying. Okay, she is crying. She is visibly upset, and she's talking about what has happened on in the classroom. Now, every this is new to everybody that's in the court because this was not shown at the civil case. So, but I'm going to show you the video right here. You can see it right here. And this is her talking to HR, the HR director. In it, Parker, and she's talking to the Newport News Public Schools Human Resource Director, Nina Farish. And in it, Parker describes what she has been told and when, and she confirmed that the reading specialist had told her about the possible gun in the backpack. She confirmed that after the specialist checked the backpack and didn't find anything, she, Parker, told the specialist that the child's mother would be arriving and advised against searching his pockets. Parker said she remained in her office throughout the morning because there's state testing. So right now there is not only the assistant principal in the office, but the principal's still in the office too. Um, then there was testimony from parents of the children who were in um, Abby Zwerner's class. And this was probably the most telling testimony. Um, um, because the parents talked about how their kids are having nightmares, they have anxiety, that they are having difficulty sleeping. And one of the mothers even said, my child doesn't want to go to school. And this happened 2 years ago. And so, as a mother, my heart broke for that because sweet, innocent first graders are always so sweet. And to think they saw someone get shot in that close range and for it to be a classmate. And another caveat, I didn't say this, but students at recess, the kids are huddled around JT. JT had showed kids at recess this gun because he had it in his pocket. So this was really, really difficult. Um, and on the third day, which was Wednesday, the prosecution, after calling all their witnesses, they rest their case. Um, Now in Virginia, this is on Thursday. We're back on Thursday. Jurors can submit written questions overnight. This is a procedural step allowed in Virginia. The defense can review those questions, and the defense review those questions, and they ask for a mistrial. This is number one. But Judge Rebecca Robinson denied the motion and said the case would proceed. Then the defense made its own next move. Before presenting any of its own evidence, it asked the judge to dismiss the entire case. The argument was simple. This is what they argued, that the prosecution had not established that a crime had occurred under Virginia law. Take note, didn't I tell you that this upcoming session, we've seen it in South Carolina, we are going to see more states who take legislation up around disciplining of children in schools due to incidents like this. Now, Judge Robinson, she listens, and then she spoke from the bench. And I'm going to read you what she said because I was actually floored. I thought she was going to deny it. And I'm going to read it to you. The court is of the legal opinion that this is not a crime, she said. She referred to the case as a mashup of legal theory. She said the legal basis for the 8 counts was unclear. She wasn't sure if the charges were tied to the unfired bullets in the gun, the children in the classroom, the psychological trauma those children suffered, or Parker's knowledge of the student's history. She said, what happened that day was awful, Judge Robinson said. That's agreed upon by all. But she ruled that the evidence presented by the prosecution did not rise to the level of criminal act under Virginia law. All 8 counts of felony child neglect were dismissed. She was not convicted of any crime, Ebony Parker. And you can see right here when they said that, she just broke down crying. She will face no prison time in the criminal case. However, Parker did not testify during this, and she still is on the hook for the $10 million. Now, Hampton Commonwealth Attorney Antoine Bell, who brought the criminal charges, issued this statement. This is what they said. From the onset, this case carried significant importance to the community. It is the citizens of Newport News through the grand jury process who determined that indictments against Ebony Parker were appropriately based upon the evidence presented. We had hoped the community would have had the opportunity to weigh in through the full judicial process. Nevertheless, the court has now concluded the matter as it seemed deemed appropriate under the law. Abby Zwerner's legal team issued her own statement, and it was pointed. Her attorney said that Zwerner had complied with the subpoena to testify again, despite the emotional toll of asking to testify again. They noted the dismissal of the criminal case actually removes one of the arguments the city of Newport News had been using in the insurance fight related to the $10 million civil judgment. The city had reportedly been using the Pendle criminal charges to dispute insurance coverage. And really, this segment was really about, this trial was about gun access, early warning about really violent children. And I suspect that in the next session in Virginia, there will be a lawmaker who brings legislation that will punish administrators who do not punish students who are violent. It's already been done in South Carolina, and I think this is going to be the precursor to legislation in Virginia. So we are back. Ebony Parker is not in jail. However, she will likely never be an assistant principal ever again. Abby Zwerner will not be a teacher again. She's actually going to be a cosmetologist. The 6-year-old's mother has spent 4 years in jail. She will likely not be the same again. And the JT, the 6-year-old who fired the shot, will likely never be the same again. And I'm curious does the mother still have custody of him, and what type of interventions are happening? Because if this is what happened when he was 6 years old, I can't imagine what will happen if he's 16, if his behavior continues to be unchecked like it was in January 2023. Guys, this has been a lot of information. Please let us know in the comments. Comment, share, like. Tell us what you think. Tell us, was justice served today? Do you think that Abby Zwerner was owed a criminal prosecution of this? And was Dr. Ebony Parker, did she get off light? And, the bigger question is there rehabilitation for this 6-year-old? And should the mother have went to jail? My opinion, yes, the mother was negligent. And the 6-year-old, I don't know what, other than intensive counseling and maybe taking him outside of his home in a different environment. This is just sad all the way around. So let us know in the comments what you think. And we will see you again tomorrow for education news that you need to know.